You never really think it will happen to you. I mean, betrayal. It's the kind of thing you hear about on the news. Or maybe it's the hushed whisper at a friend's dinner party. But when it happens to you, it doesn't feel real. At first, it just feels like a wrong note in a song you've known all your life. I met Claire when I was 26. She was everything the movies said a soulmate would be. Bright, full of laughter, eyes that could set fire to your dreams. We met through mutual friends at a 4th of July barbecue. She spilled lemonade on my shirt. We laughed, and somehow, just like that, the rest of the world faded into the background. 2 years later, we were married. The wedding wasn't extravagant, but it was filled with the kind of genuine happiness you can't fake. My parents cried. Her father, usually a stern man, even cracked a smile. When she said "I do," I believed her with every fibre of my being. And for a while, life was good. No, life was perfect. We bought a small house with blue shutters on the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it was ours. On weekends, we painted the fence, planted a tiny garden in the backyard. On weekdays, we built dreams. A family, vacations we couldn't yet afford, inside jokes that made no sense to anyone but us. 2 years into the marriage, Claire gave birth to our daughter Emma. Holding her for the first time, I cried harder than I ever thought possible. And Claire, she looked like an angel, cradling that tiny life. If there were signs back then, I didn't see them. Or maybe I didn't want to. You see, love isn't just blind, it's willfully ignorant. It chooses to believe even when it shouldn't. There was one moment, though. I remember it clearly. Claire came home late from a girls' night out. She was tipsy, laughing louder than usual. I kissed her cheek and caught a whiff of a cologne that wasn't mine. "Just the cab driver," she joked, waving her hand dismissively. I laughed along with her. Because what else would I do? Challenge her? Doubt the woman who had built a life with me? No, not me. I wasn't that kind of man. The second child came 3 years later. Another girl, Sophie. Claire seemed more distracted during this pregnancy. More distant. I chalked it up to hormones. To stress. We had just moved into a bigger house after all. Bigger mortgage. Bigger responsibilities. Still, somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, "Something isn't right." But I silenced that voice, buried it. Because love does that to you. It demands loyalty, even when it's not returned. I didn't find out the truth through arguments or drunken confessions. No. It started with something so small, so insignificant, you wouldn't think twice about it. A forgotten phone on the kitchen counter. Claire always guarded her phone like a dragon hoards gold. That night, though, she left it unattended while she bathed the girls. I don't know what made me pick it up. Maybe it was that old, ignored voice finally clawing its way to the surface. Maybe it was fate. At first, I didn't even know her password. But then, my fingers moved almost on their own. Her birthday. Of course. It opened without resistance. And what I saw. There were no steamy texts, no explicit photos. Just a folder in her gallery titled Work. Curiosity, no, dread, gnawed at me as I tapped it open. Videos, short clips, harmless at first glance. Her at a coffee shop, her smiling in a park. But then, one video, almost hidden at the bottom, caught my eye. It was filmed in a hotel room. Claire laughing, tossing a pillow at a man I didn't recognize. He caught it, pulled her into his arms, kissed her like he owned her. And she kissed him back with the kind of passion I hadn't seen in years. My heart stopped. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just froze, like a deer in headlights. Because when your whole world crumbles, you don't scream. You stand there and watch it fall, piece by piece. I closed the phone, placed it back exactly where she left it. And then I sat there, staring at the kitchen wall, while upstairs, Claire bathed our daughters, humming a a lullaby. The same lullaby she sang on the nights we used to dream together. In that moment, I realized two things. One, the woman I loved was a stranger. Two, if I wanted to protect my daughters and myself, I couldn't confront her blindly. I needed proof. Real proof. Proof that couldn't be denied, couldn't be twisted by pretty lies. That's when the idea of a DNA test crept into my mind. At first it felt monstrous. How dare I question the paternity of my own children? But then I remembered that hotel room kiss, the ease with which she betrayed our vows. So I waited. I smiled. I kissed her goodnight, tucked our daughters into bed, and lived like nothing had changed. All the while, a storm brewed inside me, silent, cold, unstoppable. Because you see, the truth has a funny way of demanding to be seen, no matter how hard you try to bury it. And I was done ignoring it. The days that followed felt like walking on a wire stretched over a canyon. Every morning, I woke up next to Claire, brewed coffee, kissed her goodbye, tucked my daughters into their car seats, and smiled. A hollow, practiced smile. Inside, I was unraveling thread by thread, but you wouldn't have known it by looking at me. The first thing I did was buy 2 DNA testing kits online. I chose the kind marketed as for fun, the type families use to explore ancestry, so Claire wouldn't get suspicious if she stumbled upon them. I told myself it was just a precaution. A way to silence the voice that had been screaming inside me since the night I watched that video. It took about a week for the kits to arrive. Every day, I checked the mailbox like a teenager waiting for a college acceptance letter. And then one morning, there they were. 2 slim boxes sitting quietly among the junk mail, holding the weight of my entire future. I acted normal. Saturday afternoon, while Claire was at the store, I sat Emma and Sophie at the kitchen table with promises of a fun science project. They giggled and made faces as I showed them how to swab their cheeks. I laughed along with them. God, it hurt to laugh. When Claire returned, she barely glanced at the kits on the counter. "Ancestry stuff?" she asked, unloading groceries. "Yeah, just curious," I said, shrugging like it was nothing. Like it didn't feel like my whole life was dangling over a cliff. She smiled at me then, the same smile she gave me on our wedding day. I looked away. The days dragged after I mailed the tests. I went to work, came home, ate dinner, pretended. Claire seemed lighter somehow, almost like she was relieved about something. She kissed me more often, touched my arm when she passed by, suggested we plan a family vacation. Maybe, I thought, maybe she had ended it. Maybe the hotel man was gone, just a ghost in her past. Maybe it was a mistake, a moment of weakness she regretted deeply. A stupid part of me clung to that hope, because despite everything, I still loved her. Isn't that the cruelest part of betrayal? Love doesn't disappear just because it's wounded. One night as we lay in bed, Claire rolled over and whispered, "I'm lucky to have you, you know that?" I stared at the ceiling, heart hammering. "Yeah," I said, voice rough. "I know." She pressed her forehead against my shoulder and sighed, a content, sleepy sound. I wondered then if I should just let it go, bury the past, move forward, forgive without knowing. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't erase the image of her wrapped in another man's arms. Some betrayals are too big to forget. Some wounds too deep to heal without first being cleaned to the bone. The email came 2 weeks later. A simple subject line: "Your DNA results are in." I stared at my phone for a long time before opening it. The results for Emma came first. I scrolled past the ancestry pie charts, the health predictions, down to the section labelled parental relationships. Expected parent, Claire, matched. Expected parent, father, no match, no match. The words blurred. I blinked, looked again, no match. It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I force myself to check Sophie's results. Same outcome. Same brutal truth. Both girls. Neither biologically mine. I sat there at the kitchen table, in the quiet, empty house, the taste of bile rising in my throat. I thought I would feel rage or devastation, but all I felt was a cold, aching numbness, like standing outside your own body, watching your world burn and being too tired to scream. Claire came home an hour later, humming to herself, groceries in hand. She kissed me on the cheek, oblivious to the grenade that had just gone off in our lives. I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered how long she had been lying. How many times she had smiled at me with guilt gnawing at her heart, if she even felt guilty at all. That night, I tucked Emma and Sophie into bed, kissed their soft foreheads, listened to them giggle and chatter about school and cartoons. They were innocent, blameless. They were still my daughters in every way that mattered. Blood be damned. And Claire was still my wife, at least for now. But the clock had started ticking. I didn't confront her immediately. I didn't scream or throw things or demand explanations. No, I did what she had taught me without meaning to. I wore a mask. I played the loving husband a little longer. Because if there was one thing I knew, it was this. When you expose a liar, you have to do it so thoroughly, so completely, that there's no way for them to twist or escape. I needed more than DNA tests. I needed the truth she couldn't deny, even to herself. The phone video wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed his name. I needed to know the full extent of the betrayal. So I waited, watched, planted tiny seeds. One evening, while Claire was washing dishes, I casually mentioned that my boss's wife had caught him cheating, all because of a hidden app on his phone. I laughed as I told the story, pretending it was gossip, nothing more. Claire froze for a fraction of a second. Barely noticeable, but I saw it, a tiny crack in her mask. Fear. And just like that, I knew she was still hiding something. Maybe she thought she was safe because I had never confronted her. Maybe she believed time had erased her mistakes. But secrets have a funny way of rotting from the inside out. And soon, hers would come crashing down around her, because I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to make sure there was no place left for her to hide. There's a certain clarity that comes when you hit rock bottom. It strips away the illusions, the excuses. You stop asking why, because you realize it doesn't matter. Some people will betray you simply because it's easy, or because they can. After the DNA results, after the silence of that terrible revelation, something inside me shifted. I didn't lash out. I didn't leave. I simply changed. At first, it was subtle. I started staying later at work, taking on more projects, volunteering for things I normally would have passed on. I needed the distraction. More than that, I needed to build something that was mine again, something no one could take from me. The long hours paid off. Within 6 months, I was promoted to senior management. A bigger office, a bigger paycheck. More importantly, a sense of self-respect I hadn't realized I'd lost somewhere along the way. At home, I became a better father. I poured myself into Emma and Sophie, helping with homework, coaching Emma's little league soccer team, volunteering at Sophie's school events. They deserved that from me. They deserved to know that love wasn't conditional, that even if their mother had made choices that shattered us, they were never mistakes. They were my greatest victories. Claire, meanwhile, seemed caught in some delicate balancing act. She noticed the changes, the late nights, the new energy about me. She started dressing up more when I came home, cooking elaborate dinners, planning weekend getaways for the 4 of us. She was trying, or pretending to try. And part of me wondered if guilt was eating her alive, or if it was just the fear of losing the comfortable life we had built. Sometimes I caught her watching me across the dinner table. Her fork paused, mid-air, eyes soft, searching, like she was looking for cracks, or maybe trying to guess how much I knew. I never gave her a clue. Because revenge, real revenge, doesn't come from anger. It comes from patience. One evening, after tucking the girls into bed, Claire found me out back, sitting by the old fire pit we barely used anymore. The night was cool, stars scattered across a velvet sky. She sat beside me without a word, pulling her knees up to her chest. After a long silence, she whispered, "Do you still love me?" I turned the question over in my mind like a stone, feeling its weight, its sharp edges. "I don't know," I said quietly. "It wasn't cruelty. It was the truth." Claire blinked rapidly, turning her face away so I wouldn't see the tears welling in her eyes. But I saw them anyway. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost, because love isn't supposed to come with conditions. Yet here we were, sitting in the ruins of what should have been unbreakable. I could have told her everything right then. The DNA results, the video, the years of betrayal. But something held me back. Not yet. Not until I had every last piece of the puzzle. Because if I confronted her too soon, she'd find a way to twist it, to manipulate, to rewrite the story. And I wouldn't let her escape the truth so easily. In the weeks that followed, I laid the groundwork carefully. I found a private investigator, a quiet, efficient man who didn't ask unnecessary questions. I gave him Claire's work schedule, the names of her friends, the vague suspicions I had about certain business trips. I also started checking our shared finances more closely. Hidden purchases, strange cash withdrawals, nothing obvious, but enough to suggest she still had secrets tucked away like landmines. And through it all, I remained the model husband, supportive, kind, attentive, the perfect mask. Because if Claire was still hiding something, and I was sure she was, I needed her to feel safe. I needed her to believe she had gotten away with it. Only then would she lower her guard completely. The PI worked fast. Within 2 weeks he had a name, Daniel, a co-worker from a former job, someone she had supposedly lost touch with years ago, except she hadn't. She met him twice a month at a cheap hotel off the highway, a place that rented by the hour. Sometimes she stayed longer, sometimes just enough time to tear down what little respect remained. The PI gave me photos, blurry but undeniable. Claire and Daniel kissing outside his beat-up truck. Claire and Daniel walking into the hotel lobby together, laughing like two teenagers with a secret. The final blow came with a copy of the hotel's guest log, obtained by less than legal means. She had signed in under her real name. No hesitation, no shame. The weight of it nearly crushed me. All those nights I stayed late at work, building a future for us. She had been building a lie. All those family dinners, vacations, Christmas mornings with the girls. She had been carrying another life inside her heart, a life I was never meant to be part of. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, the evidence spread out in front of me. Photos, receipts, hotel records, proof, cold, brutal proof. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel numb. I felt a firelight inside me, slow, steady, unstoppable. This wasn't about rage. This wasn't about punishment. It was about truth, about giving her the dignity of facing what she had done without lies, without manipulation. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to break dishes or storm out. No. When the time came, I would confront her the way she had confronted our vows, silently, without mercy, and when it was over, I would walk away with my head held high, because I may have been betrayed, but I would not be broken, not by her, not by anyone. The hardest part wasn't gathering the evidence. It wasn't even living under the same roof as the woman who had unraveled the life we built. The hardest part was the waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the right place, the right words, because this wasn't going to be a scene out of some cheap soap opera. No shouting, no name-calling, No fists pounding tables. I wanted the truth to expose itself. I wanted Claire to see herself. Really see herself. Through the shattered mirror she had created. And then, finally, to fall apart under the weight of it. The opportunity came on, a Sunday afternoon. We had planned a small barbecue in the backyard, just the four of us. Emma and Sophie ran around chasing bubbles, their laughter cutting through the heavy air like little sparks of light. Claire moved around the grill, flipping burgers, pouring lemonade, smiling like everything was perfectly normal. It almost would have been easy to believe. Almost. I watched her closely that day. Not just her smile, but the way her eyes darted when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she lingered by her phone, checking it every few minutes with a flicker of worry that quickly masked itself. She was nervous. Maybe she sensed it. The shift in me, or maybe the cracks were finally showing through her carefully painted life. After lunch, while the girls played with sidewalk chalk on the patio, Claire sat beside me on the porch swing. She leaned her head against my shoulder, the way she used to in the early days. "I was thinking," she said softly, "maybe we should plan a little trip, just you and me." A part of me, a very small, broken part, almost said yes, but I smiled instead. "That sounds nice," I lied, because the trip I was planning was a journey she wasn't ready for. That night, after the girls had gone to bed, I set everything into motion. I told Claire I'd found an old camcorder while cleaning the garage, the one we used to record home videos when Emma was a baby. Her eyes lit up with nostalgia, the way people's faces do when they remember a simpler time. "Let's watch some old videos," I suggested. "Maybe show the girls tomorrow." She agreed immediately. I set up the camcorder on the living room TV, popped in a memory card. Not the real old videos, of course. Instead, I had copied the hotel footage from her phone onto it, carefully, disguised among a handful of legitimate home videos. It was bait, and Claire walked right into the trap. We sat there together on the couch as video after video played. Emma's first steps, Sophie's third birthday party, Claire holding them both in the hospital. Memories that hurt now to watch. Claire laughed and wiped away tears, reaching for my hand. And then the next video began. The screen flickered. Claire, in a hotel room, tossing a pillow at a man whose face was just barely visible, laughing, falling into his arms, kissing him. Claire stiffened beside me. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared straight ahead, my hand still resting loosely in hers. For a moment, neither of us breathed. She reached for the remote, frantic, trembling fingers fumbling to pause the video. But I gently took it from her. "Don't," I said softly. "Just watch." Her face crumbled. The blood drained from her cheeks, her mouth opening and closing without sound. When the video ended, the room was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the mantel. Claire finally spoke, her voice a broken whisper. I can explain." I turned to her then, meeting her wide, tear-glazed eyes. "No, you can't." Her lower lip quivered. "You were going to lie, weren't you?" I asked, voice still calm, almost detached. "You were going to spin some story, make it sound like it didn't mean anything, that it was a mistake." Claire shook her head rapidly, tears spilling down her face. "It was a mistake," she choked out. "It happened once, I swear." I almost laughed. The way you laugh when you hear something so absurd, it breaks through your sadness like glass. "Once?" I echoed. I leaned forward, pulled the folder from under the coffee table, the photos, the receipts, the hotel logs. I dropped it in her lap. Claire stared down at it, her hands trembling so violently the pages slid to the floor. "Was it once when you signed into the hotel under your real name?" I asked, quietly. "Was it once when you met him twice a month for the last 2 years?" She sobbed then, covering her face with her hands, rocking back and forth. I didn't touch her. I didn't comfort her. She had forfeited that right. Emma stirred upstairs. A small sound. The kind that broke your heart if you weren't careful. Claire heard it too. She froze. I saw the terror in her eyes. Not fear of losing me, but fear of losing them. The girls. And suddenly, the power shifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one begging, compromising, forgiving sins I didn't commit. She was. "I'll do anything," Claire whispered through her sobs. "I'll fix this. I'll make it right." I stood up slowly, looking down at the woman who had once been my whole world. "You can't fix this," I said, voice heavy with the finality of it. Not because I hated her, but because some things, once broken, can never be mended. I left her, there, crumpled on the living room floor, and walked upstairs to check on my daughters. They were both fast asleep, safe in a world still innocent of the darkness downstairs. And as I watched them breathe softly in the moonlight, I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because Claire still hadn't faced the full truth. The DNA test. The ultimate betrayal. And when that truth came out, she would finally understand what she had truly destroyed. The next morning, Claire tried to pretend everything was normal. She made pancakes, poured juice, smiled too brightly at Emma and Sophie as they stumbled sleepily into the kitchen. The girls didn't notice anything was wrong. Why would they? In their world, Mum and Dad were constants, unshakable, unbreakable. I sat at the table, sipping coffee, watching Claire move through the kitchen like a ghost wearing her own skin. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped pancakes. Her voice cracked once or twice when she spoke, but to anyone else, she would have looked almost normal. Almost. It was impressive, in a way. How quickly she defaulted to the performance. But that's all it was now. A performance. After breakfast, I pulled Claire aside while the girls played outside. "We need to talk," I said simply. Her face paled, but she nodded. She followed me into the study, a small room lined with bookshelves and old photos of our family, snapshots of a life that now felt like it belonged to someone else. I closed the door behind us. Claire stood there, wringing her hands, staring at the floor. "I want a divorce," I said, calm, almost gentle. Her head snapped up, eyes wide and panicked. "No, please, we can fix this," she whispered, stepping toward me. I held up a hand. "There's no fixing this, Claire," I said. "You made choices. Repeatedly. You lied. You betrayed. And not just me." Her lip trembled. "I love you," she said desperately. "I made mistakes, but you're my husband. We can get through this. For the girls." At the mention of the girls, something inside me hardened. "You mean my girls?" I asked quietly. Claire flinched. She opened her mouth, confused, like she didn't understand, and then realization dawned. Slow. Crushing. Her knees gave out, and she sat down heavily on the edge of the couch. "You," she stammered. "You know?" I nodded. "I know everything, Claire," I said. "The DNA tests, the hotel rooms, Daniel." At the sound of his name, she covered her face with her hands and let out a low, broken sob. I didn't move to comfort her. Not anymore. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Claire looked up, eyes red, pleading. "They're yours," she whispered. "Even if, biologically, they're yours. You raised them. You're their father." A part of me wanted to scream at her, to tear down every lie, every selfish justification, but I didn't. Instead, I said very quietly, "You stole that choice from me." She sobbed harder, rocking slightly. "You don't have to tell them," she begged. "They don't need to know. They're happy. They love you." I closed my eyes for a moment. The thought of shattering Emma and Sophie's world twisted something deep inside me. They were innocent. They didn't deserve the consequences of Claire's betrayal. "I won't tell them," I said finally. "Not now. Maybe not ever." Relief flooded her face. "But," I continued, "I am filing for divorce, and you will not fight me for custody." Claire's mouth opened, probably to argue, to plead. But I cut her off. If you do, Claire, I will subpoena every piece of evidence. The videos, the DNA results, the hotel records, and I will make sure the court knows everything. Her face crumpled again. I won't fight, she whispered. I'll do whatever you want. I nodded. Good, I said simply. Because whatever love once existed between us was gone, burned away by years of lies and betrayal. All that was left was duty. Duty to my daughters. Duty to myself. Claire sat there, broken and weeping, as I left the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just walked away. Later that week, I met with a divorce attorney. She was efficient, sharp-eyed, professional, the kind of person you wanted in your corner when your life was collapsing. We filed the papers quietly. No social media explosions, no public arguments, just cold, legal precision. Claire signed without protest. Maybe because she knew fighting would only expose her deeper. Maybe because, deep down, she realized she didn't deserve anything more. We agreed on shared custody, on paper, but the girls stayed with me most of the time. Claire moved into a small apartment across town, the kind of place you rent when your life falls apart and you're too ashamed to stay close to the ruins. She tried, in her own broken way, to be part of the girls' lives, showed up for soccer games, school plays, birthdays. But there was a distance, now. A wall that no amount of tears or apologies could tear down. And the girls. They felt it too. They didn't know the details, of course. They only knew that Mommy was sad all the time now, that Daddy smiled less but hugged them more. And slowly, painfully, we started to heal. I threw myself into being their father. The real kind of father. The kind who shows up, who stays, who loves without conditions. I built a new life. Brick by careful brick. Not out of bitterness, not out of vengeance, but out of the simple, stubborn refusal to let her betrayal define me. Some nights, after the girls were asleep, I sat alone in the living room and thought about everything that had happened. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I laughed. A bitter, exhausted sound. But mostly, I felt relief. Because as painful as the truth was, it was better than living in a lie. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. The worst was over, almost. Because there was still one thing Claire hadn't faced. One thing I hadn't yet revealed. Something that would strip away the last thread she was clinging to. And when the time came, it would be the final, devastating truth. The divorce was finalized in early spring. No drama, no fireworks. Just 2 signatures on a stack of papers, and the quiet, aching end of something that once meant everything. Claire wore a pale blue dress to court that day. She looked small somehow, lost in a sea of regret. Her hands trembled as she signed her name for the last time next to mine. I didn't feel satisfaction, only a deep, hollow sadness. Sadness for the life we could have had. Sadness for the family we should have been. As we walked out of the courthouse, Claire touched my arm gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. I gave her a small nod. Not forgiveness, not absolution, just acknowledgement. Because some apologies come too late to matter. For the sake of Emma and Sophie, we kept things civil. We divided holidays, attended school events without glaring at each other across crowded gymnasiums. From the outside, it looked almost amicable, but underneath, there was an undercurrent. A silent war neither of us dared bring to the surface. I thought, maybe, that would be the end. But life has a cruel way of reserving its deepest cuts for when you think the bleeding is done. It happened one sunny Saturday morning. I had taken the girls to a local park, one of those sprawling places with wide green fields and endless playgrounds. They raced ahead, laughing, as I set up a small picnic under a tree. That's when my phone buzzed. It was an email from the private investigator. I frowned. We hadn't spoken in months, not since the divorce was finalized. I thought everything was over. Curious, and with a strange sinking feeling, I opened it. Attached was a video file. No subject, no explanation. I hesitated for a moment, glancing toward where Emma and Sophie were playing tag in the distance. Then I pressed play. At first it was dark, shaky footage like someone filming secretly from behind a wall. And then it came into focus. Claire, standing outside her apartment, complex, arguing with Daniel, the man from the hotel videos. Their voices were muffled, but angry, accusations flying back and forth, and then, clear as day, I heard Daniel's voice rise above the noise. "They're not even mine, Claire. You think I didn't figure it out? They don't look anything like me. You lied to both of us." My stomach dropped. The video ended abruptly after that, leaving me staring at the screen in stunned silence. Not his? I sat there for a long time, the breeze rustling the leaves above me, my heart hammering painfully in my chest. If Daniel wasn't the father either, who was? The realization hit me like a freight train. Claire had been lying even to the man she cheated with. The web of deception was deeper, messier, more cruel than I had ever imagined. I looked over at my daughters again, Emma pushing Sophie on the swings, both of them shrieking with laughter. They were my daughters, no matter what. But the weight of the truth pressed down on me like a stone. Claire hadn't just betrayed our marriage, she had betrayed everything. That night, after the girls were asleep, I sat in the dim light of the living room, the video playing over and over again in my mind. I thought about confronting Claire, about demanding answers she probably couldn't or wouldn't give. But then I realized something far more important. I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not explanations, not confessions, not apologies. The truth was already mine. The next day, I sent Claire a message. Short, cold, final. I know about Daniel. I know he's not the father either. I don't care who the biological father is. Our daughters are mine. Nothing you say or do can change that. This is the last conversation we will ever have about it. She responded within minutes. A flood of messages, pleading, crying, trying to explain. I didn't read them. I deleted the thread. Because some people, once they show you who they truly are, don't deserve any more of your time, your thoughts, or your pain. Claire didn't just lose her husband, she lost the right to be part of my story. And as for me, I finally felt free. Not in a triumphant movie-ending kind of way, but in the quiet, steady kind of way that comes when you finally stop carrying someone else's sins on your back. I poured all my love into Emma and Sophie. I showed up for every recital, every science fair, every scraped knee and bedtime story. I built a life for the three of us, small at first, but real, solid. And slowly, the wounds began to heal. I didn't date for a long time. I didn't trust easily. How could I? But over time, the bitterness faded, replaced by something stronger. Hope. Not for the life I lost, but for the life still ahead of us. One built not on lies, but on love. Real love. The kind you fight for. The kind you protect with everything you have. The kind you never ever take for granted. Time has a strange way of moving after heartbreak. Some days feel endless, slow, heavy, each hour dragging behind the next. Other days slip by unnoticed, like water through your fingers. It's been 2 years now. 2 years since the truth tore through my life like a hurricane. 2 years since I signed those papers, watched Claire disappear into a chapter of my life I never cared to reread. Sometimes I still catch myself looking back, not with anger anymore, not even with sadness, just acceptance. Because pain, when it's finally worn itself out, leaves behind something surprisingly soft, something almost like peace. Emma and Sophie have grown so much in those years. Emma's in middle school now, already taller than some of her teachers, full of dreams about becoming a marine biologist. Sophie still sleeps with her favorite stuffed rabbit but insists she's almost a teenager and demands a phone every other week. They're bright, kind, strong. They are my greatest achievements, my greatest joys. Not a day goes by that I don't look at them and feel overwhelming gratitude. Not for the betrayal, never that, but for the life that grew from it. If I had clung to the lie Claire built, if I had let the bitterness consume me, I might have missed all of this. The quiet mornings making pancakes in the kitchen, the endless car rides singing off-key to pop songs on the radio, the late-night talks about school crushes, dreams, and fears whispered in the dark. These moments, small, ordinary, became the foundation of a new life, a better one. As for Claire, she exists now only on the periphery of my world. She sees the girls on her weekends, attends the big milestones, birthdays, recitals, graduations. We are civil, polite, but the warmth is gone, the intimacy, the trust. She remarried last year, a quiet ceremony at City Hall. I didn't attend, of course, but the girls brought backstories of the day. Claire looked happy in the photos they showed me, and honestly, I hope she is, not for her sake, but for Emma and Sophie, because children deserve parents who are whole, even if the marriage that created them wasn't. As for me, love came again, slowly, cautiously, like a bird deciding whether to trust an outstretched hand. Her name is Lily. We met at a bookstore of all places, reaching for the same battered copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Cliché, maybe, but sometimes life gives you small miracles when you least expect them. Lily knows my story. I told her everything early on, not because I wanted sympathy, but because I needed her to know who I really was. She didn't flinch. She didn't pity me. She just listened, her hand finding mine across the table, her eyes steady and kind. With Lily, there are no lies, no half-truths, just honesty, laughter, late-night conversations that stretch into morning light. The girls adore her, and somehow, against all odds, our little broken family grew new roots, stronger ones, wiser ones. One evening, not long ago, after the girls had gone to bed, Lily and I sat on the porch swing, the same one Claire and I used to sit on, watching the stars prick holes in the dark. I told her something I hadn't even admitted to myself before. If everything hadn't happened the way it did, I said, I never would have found you. She smiled softly, leaning her head against my shoulder. Sometimes, she whispered, life breaks you just enough to let the light in, and she was right. The betrayal that nearly destroyed me had, in the strangest way, set me free. It stripped away the illusions, the false comforts, the easy lies. It forced me to rebuild from the ground up, brick by painful brick, a life that was real, solid. True. If you're listening to this story, if you've been broken, betrayed, left staring at the ruins of what you thought was forever, I want you to know something. You will survive. You will hurt. Yes, you will question everything. You will wonder if you'll ever feel whole again, but you will survive. And if you're willing to be patient, brutally, stubbornly patient, something beautiful will grow in the cracks the pain leaves behind. Something stronger than what was there before. Something more you than you ever thought possible. Life doesn't always give you the happy ending you planned for. Sometimes it gives you something better, a second chance, a clean slate, a new beginning. And if you're brave enough to embrace it, you might just find that the life waiting for you on the other side of heartbreak is the life you were meant for all along. I'm living proof of that. Not because I'm perfect. Not because I didn't fall apart. I did, more times than I can count. But because I got back up. Because I chose to build something new instead of clinging to the ashes of what had burned away. Because I chose love. Real love. And every day I wake up, pour coffee, pack lunches, kiss scraped knees, and laugh until my sides hurt. I am reminded I didn't lose, I didn't fail, I survived. And now I thrive.